We have an absolutely massive Minnesota Wild update as recent reports have come out from Michael Russo that the Minnesota Wild have made significant progress with Marco Rossi on a contract negotiation. We're going to be breaking that down as well as the Minnesota Wild's master plan, as well as going over some Olympic roster candidates from the Minnesota Wild who have just been announced. We're going to be breaking it all down here in this video. Before we do jump into this entire video though, ladies and gentlemen, be sure to hit the sub button if you haven't already. We finally have updates regarding Marco Rossi. We're going to be breaking it down as this goes on day by day. And we also noticed that just over 90% of you guys watching right now have not hit that sub button. We're on the road to 2K as well. Your support's been absolutely incredible as of late. But we need to get into this because we finally have a positive update regarding Marco Rossi on this Minnesota Wild team. And once again, this comes out from Michael Russo, putting it out here, saying that hearing that there's been significant progress towards a potential Marco Rossi signing by the Minnesota Wild in the coming days. As we've been reporting, a bridge deal makes the most sense. Now, Michael Russo continued on here in the comments below this tweet that we're going to jump into here in a moment. But going over this initial report, this is obviously the best thing and really the only positive note we've actually had on this whole topic the entire summer, the entire offseason. And now seeing that, we're closing in on some sort of deal, and of course, Michael Russo still says potentially, and there are things that can still turn into a not non-positive direction, but the fact that they've made significant progress is obviously the thing that we've been waiting for. And Michael Russo goes on to say as well, a bridge deal is what makes most sense, and we kind of anticipated that. We've kind of expected that a little bit, and we're going to dive into that here in a moment. The contract, what Michael Russo said, the price could be, and that's going on to reply with the comments of that post. People are asking, hey, can you provide an example of a bridge deal for this situation? And Michael Russo said 2 to 3 years, times $5-ish million is his guess. So going into this potential deal, of course, this is one of the options that we've been seeing, and there is, kind of some idea here that this was the only option for this team. And of course, the Minnesota Wild were looking at a $5 million deal initially for 7 years. Now, we knew that was not going to be going down. We knew that Michael Russo, putting this out, saying, that's kind of just, the deal they're offering. Will Marco Rossi want it? No, not really. We saw that. We knew that was going to happen. But now seeing this as a potential 2 to 3 year deal at that $5 million mark, it gives a very good sense of where they are on a contract, and as well as what could be going down in the future. And I'm going to kind of talk about this. I think this is part of the Minnesota Wild's master plan going into this, which is an option of getting his value up, letting him go off, let him, sit him on that second line where he's been having success last season. Keep him on that second line, let his value grow, and then trade him. And we're going to jump into that here in a moment. Going into the contract, projections by cap wages, 7 by 7.3 was the big, kind of deal that we've been looking at. The kind of, high number. We've seen upwards of 10 from the Rossi camp. We knew that wasn't going to happen either. But when you're looking at a 2 by 4.5, a 3 by 5, as Michael Russo said, that is seemingly the contract that makes the most sense for not just the Minnesota Wild. Not really even Marco Rossi, but if he wants to get a deal done, if he wants to play this year, that's going to be the one that has to happen to be able to make sure that he sees the ice, before, November or December, whenever the deadline may be. And going into this, we've expected some sort of deal to go down like this, if a deal was going down at all, regardless of a trade. And we're going to talk about that a little bit here, as well as a report also came out today, which kind of goes to show the conflicting reports, even though Michael Russo has already tweeted this out. Now, going into the lineup, as we saw, Michael Russo, saying a 2 to 3 years, $5 million deal, setting him on the second line there. And we're going to jump into another reply he had on that tweet, which really shows why this is another good kind of idea for the Minnesota Wild. You see him there between Marcus Johansson, whether or not he will be there on the second line, still to be determined, but Matt Zuccarello as well. He will certainly have a very high production on that line, especially with Kirill Kaprizov, Joe Eriksson Ek, Matt Boldy, maybe even jump up to the first line if need be for some game. That would be a very interesting thing to see when we know that you get, very solid production out of Marco Rossi, and someone who will certainly be there for whenever you need him. And, going forward as well, what will happen there? Still, I said I'll be kind of jumping in that in a little bit, but kind of be determined as well whether or not the plan is to actually keep him or extend him throughout those years. But going in to what this one, someone once again asked him in the tweet, replied to that one. Give him 3 years, hopefully his value increases, then trade him. And Michael Russo straight up just said, yep. So it does seem like this is something the Wild are going to be looking at. We saw Bill Guerin say, he's not really the kind of player that, Bill Guerin didn't necessarily say that, but we knew that he's not really the player that Bill Guerin likes. We know that Bill Guerin likes a big type of center, a big, Joe Eriksson Ek guy is what we're kind of seeing in him. Someone undersized is not really the biggest fan of Bill Guerin. We know that, he's very good, but going into it, he's not the center this team is supposedly looking for. I'm quite content with him, but it seems like other, management staff on this team are not. So, could it be the Minnesota Wild's master plan to go and flip Marco Rossi? Not, early on, but at some point throughout this contract negotiation or contract year, and go out and see if he can make some more, more value over these next seasons. And that's one thing I think this team is really going to be looking at. I think this team is really kind of anticipating behind Marco Rossi, and that's one thing that we're going to have to wait and see before we can actually go out here and judge that kind of stuff. So let me know what you think about that. We do have one more little thing before we kind of jump into the Olympic side of things, but this is also the report that came out earlier from RG, coming out from also Sports Illustrated, kind of pairing those articles together. Seattle Kraken and Vancouver Canucks are two teams reportedly pursuing Wild center, of course, Marco Rossi in this case. Jamie Murphy of RG has paid close attention to the situation, and according to multiple NHL sources, these two teams made it known that they want to circle back if contract talks were still stalled at this point in the summer. August is ending, and both the Kraken and Canucks want to bolster their forward depth before the 25-26 season begins. So we knew the Canucks and also the Kraken a little bit have kind of been in there, but now circling back, these two teams are still very interested. And if they do end up seeing some sort of deal like this, it'd be interesting to see if they would offer a sign and trade or something like that, give up some high value. And as I've spoken about previously, kind of going in between these two teams, there's been one that's really, kind of standing out, which is Vancouver, who've been really at any point throughout this negotiation, always seemingly on the doorstep, waiting for these trades to kind of go down, waiting for these trades to, waiting for a signing to go down or whatnot, trying to get some sort of information from the Minnesota Wild. So this is just one thing as well to kind of keep an eye on. As over the next few days, Michael Russo have said, things are going to heat up. But we're going to move on. Before we finish the video off, one more note going over the Olympic roster. And you see Brock Faber and Matt Boldy being the two here from the Minnesota Wild currently on the camps, the roster, the lineups, whatever you want to call them. And this is a very good note, obviously, to see Brock Faber, after a little bit of a lackluster season last year, was definitely not bad, but having him back on this team, very, very good, or, kind of getting him anticipated and ready up for the February Olympics. And, of course, this entire season, he's going to play another big, important role, as well as Matt Boldy getting his recognition. There was no way either of these players would have been left off, but going on from the U.S. roster, we're going to have to see these two here absolutely tear it up. And as well as some more that are going to be coming at a later date for other teams, and we're going to be keeping an update on those as well. But that's all I got in this video. If you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well, and remember, we have a Marco Rossi update coming very, very soon, just like this. No matter when things are going down, we're going to have to keep you guys updated right here because we know things are absolutely heating up on this front, so you don't want to miss it. But that's all I got in this video. Like I said, if you did enjoy, give it a like, hit the sub button as well. I'm signing out, though. Thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. See you later.